The marketing girl thought he was just a poor street guitarist. Please rate this story from 1 to 10. Tell us where you are watching from, and share if you have a similar experience. Subscribe for news stories every day. Let's begin. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed for Mia. She was sitting in her favorite coffee shop reviewing quarterly reports. The autumn light streamed through the windows, casting golden patterns across her laptop screen. She had been working at Grace's boutique marketing firm for 3 years now. The job paid well enough, but her real passion had always been music. Every evening after work, she would go home and play her piano for hours. It was the only time she felt truly alive. That afternoon, a man walked into the coffee shop. He wore an expensive suit that probably cost more than Mia's monthly rent. His shoes were polished to perfection, and his watch caught the light with every movement. Several people turned to look at him as he ordered his coffee. Mia barely glanced up from her laptop. She had learned long ago that rich men in expensive suits were usually not worth her time. But this man did not order his coffee and leave. Instead, he walked directly to Mia's table. He stood there for a moment, waiting for her to acknowledge him. When she finally looked up, he smiled in a way that seemed practiced and rehearsed.
Excuse me. Are you Mia Thompson?
Yes. Who are you?
My name is Ethan Sinclair. I own Sinclair Industries. Perhaps you have heard of it.
Mia had indeed heard of Sinclair Industries. It was one of the largest investment firms in the city. They controlled billions of dollars and had investments in everything from real estate to technology. Ethan Sinclair was known in business circles as a genius investor who had built his fortune from nothing.
I know who you are. What do you want?
I would like to take you to dinner. Tonight, if you are available.
Mia stared at him for a long moment. She noticed how he stood there with absolute confidence, as if her answer was already certain. There was something in his eyes that bothered her. It was not cruelty exactly, but rather a kind of cold calculation. He looked at her the way someone might look at a business opportunity.
Thank you, but I am not interested.
Ethan's smile did not falter, but something flickered in his eyes. He clearly was not used to being rejected.
I can make reservations at any restaurant in the city. Name your favorite place, and I will arrange everything.
That is very generous, but my answer is still no.
May I ask why?
Because you are asking me out the way you probably close business deals. Like it is a transaction. Like my answer does not really matter because you always get what you want.
Ethan's confident expression finally cracked. For the first time since approaching her table, he looked genuinely surprised. No one had ever spoken to him this way before. He opened his mouth to respond, but Mia had already returned her attention to her laptop. After a moment of awkward silence, he turned and walked out of the coffee shop. Mia felt a small surge of satisfaction. She had been approached by wealthy men before. They always assumed that money could buy anything, including her time and attention. She refused to be treated like a prize to be won. That evening, Mia finished work early and decided to walk through Riverside Park. It was her favorite place in the city, especially in autumn when the leaves turned gold and red. The park stretched along the river for several miles with walking paths and benches scattered throughout. As she walked, she could hear the sound of guitar music drifting through the trees. She followed the sound and found a man sitting on a bench, playing acoustic guitar. He was young, probably around her age, with worn jeans and a simple jacket. His guitar case lay open at his feet with a few dollar bills inside. He was playing a beautiful melody that seemed to capture the exact feeling of the autumn evening. Mia stopped to listen. The music was not technically perfect, but it had something that moved her deeply. There was real emotion in every note. The man's eyes were closed as he played, completely absorbed in the music. When the song ended, she found herself applauding. The man opened his eyes and smiled at her. It was a genuine smile, completely different from Ethan Sinclair's practiced expression. This smile reached his eyes and seemed to light up his entire face.
That was beautiful. Did you write it yourself?
The man nodded and adjusted his guitar.
I play piano. I have never been brave enough to perform in public, though.
The man set his guitar aside and gestured to the empty space on the bench.
I am Mia.
I am Ethan. Just Ethan.
They talked for over an hour, as the sun slowly set behind the city skyline. Ethan told her he had been playing guitar since he was 12 years old. He performed in the park most evenings after finishing his day job at a music store. He spoke about music with a passion that reminded Mia of herself. There was no pretense in his words, no calculation in his eyes. He was simply sharing something he loved with someone who understood. Mia found herself telling him about her own musical dreams. She had wanted to be a concert pianist when she was younger, but life and financial pressures had pushed her toward a more practical career. Now she only played for herself in her small apartment.
It is never too late. You should share your music with the world.
Maybe someday. For now, I'm just happy to have met someone who understands.
As darkness fell, Mia realized she had been talking to this stranger for almost 2 hours. She never did this. She was usually guarded and careful with new people. But something about Ethan made her feel comfortable and safe.
Will you be here tomorrow?
I walk through the park most evenings.
Then perhaps I will see you again.
Mia walked home, feeling lighter than she had in months. She could not remember the last time she had connected with someone so quickly and naturally. When she got to her apartment, she sat at her piano and played for hours. The music flowed from her fingers more easily than it had in years. The next evening, Mia found herself hurrying through her work. Grace noticed her distraction and teased her about having a secret boyfriend. Mia laughed it off, but could not deny she was eager to return to the park. When she arrived, Ethan was already there playing the same bench. He looked up as she approached, and his face broke into that genuine smile.
I hoped you would come.
I could not stay away. Your music is addictive.
They fell into an easy routine over the following weeks. Mia would finish work and walk to Riverside Park. Ethan would be there waiting with his guitar. Sometimes he would play for her, and sometimes they would just talk. He told her about his struggles to make it as a musician, how he worked long hours at the music store just to pay rent, how he dreamed of recording an album someday, but could barely afford groceries. Mia found herself caring deeply about this man she barely knew. She started bringing him coffee and sandwiches in the evenings. Ethan always protested but gratefully accepted. There was a gentleness about him that she had never encountered in other men. He listened when she spoke, really listened, as if her words were precious. One evening, Rachel came to meet Mia at the park. Rachel had been Mia's best friend since college. She was practical and protective, and always looked out for Mia's interests. When she saw Ethan sitting on the bench with his guitar, her expression changed. After Ethan packed up his guitar and left, Rachel turned to Mia with concern in her eyes. She pointed out that Mia knew almost nothing about this street musician. She suggested that he might be using Mia for money or food. Mia tried to defend Ethan, but Rachel's doubts planted seeds of uncertainty in her mind. The next evening, Mia watched Ethan more carefully. She noticed things she had not paid attention to before. His clothes were worn, but they were good quality brands. His guitar was expensive, far more than a struggling musician should be able to afford. When he talked about his day job at the music store, he was always vague about details. Small inconsistencies began to accumulate in her mind. One night, as they were saying goodbye, Ethan's phone rang. He pulled it from his pocket and glanced at the screen. Mia caught a glimpse of the caller ID. It simply said David. Ethan's expression changed for just a moment. He looked almost guilty before declining the call.
You can answer that if you need to.
It is not important. I would rather spend time with you.
But Mia had seen something in that brief moment. The way he held the phone, the quality of the device itself. It was the latest model, probably worth more than $1,000. Not exactly what she would expect from someone who could barely afford groceries. The doubts began to eat at her. She started to wonder if Rachel was right. Maybe Ethan was not who he claimed to be. But every time she looked into his eyes, she saw genuine emotion. The way he talked about music, the way he listened to her. It all felt so real. Meanwhile, Ethan was struggling with his own demons. Every evening when he left the park and returned to his penthouse apartment, he felt like a fraud. David, his business partner and closest friend, constantly urged him to tell Mia the truth. But Ethan was terrified that if she knew who he really was, she would see him the way she had seen him that day in the coffee shop, as just another rich man trying to buy her attention. The deception had started almost by accident. After Mia rejected him at the coffee shop, Ethan had been furious and confused. No woman had ever rejected him before. He had built his entire fortune through determination and intelligence. He was used to getting what he wanted. But something about Mia's words had struck deep. She had seen through his polished exterior and found something lacking. That night, he could not stop thinking about what she had said, about treating her like a business transaction. He realized she was right. He had always approached relationships the same way he approached business, with strategy and calculation. He had never allowed himself to be vulnerable or genuine. His wealth had become both his greatest asset and his biggest barrier to real human connection. So when he saw Mia walking through Riverside Park the next evening, he had made an impulsive decision. He left his expensive watch in his car. He grabbed an old guitar he kept in his trunk from his college days. He sat down on a bench and started to play. He had not intended for it to become an ongoing deception. He had thought maybe he would talk to her once or twice, and then reveal the truth. But when she started coming back every evening, when she opened up to him about her dreams and fears, he found himself trapped in the lie. For the first time in his adult life, someone was seeing the real him. Not Ethan Sinclair, the billionaire investor, but just Ethan, the man who loved music and genuine connection. Mia had no idea she was talking to the same person she had rejected weeks earlier. And Ethan could not bring himself to shatter the beautiful illusion they had created together. One evening, David showed up at Ethan's penthouse unannounced. He walked into the living room and found Ethan practicing guitar. David stared at him for a long moment before shaking his head in disbelief. David told Ethan this had gone too far. He pointed out that Mia would feel betrayed when she learned the truth. He argued that Ethan was being selfish and cruel by continuing the deception. Every day, Ethan waited, made the eventual revelation worse. Ethan knew David was right, but he was paralyzed by fear. He had spent his entire adult life building walls around himself. Mia was the first person who had ever climbed over those walls, and she had only done so because she did not know they were there. The next evening, Ethan arrived at the park, determined to tell Mia everything. But when he saw her walking toward him with that bright smile, he lost his courage. They sat together on the bench, as usual. Mia rested her head on his shoulder as he played guitar. The moment felt perfect and fragile. He could not bring himself to break it. Instead, he asked her about her day. Mia told him about a difficult client at work. Grace had assigned her to handle a major campaign for a new luxury hotel. The client was demanding and constantly changed his requirements. Mia was exhausted and frustrated.
You should stand up for yourself. Tell him what you need to do the job properly.
Easy to say. Harder to do when your boss is afraid of losing the account.
Ethan made a mental note. He knew the hotel chain Mia was talking about. Sinclair Industries had investments in that company. Perhaps he could help without revealing who he was. He could make a few phone calls, arrange for the client to be more reasonable. But even as he thought this, he realized how twisted his situation had become. He was using his wealth and power to manipulate Mia's life, even if his intentions were good. This was exactly the kind of behavior she had rejected in him. Over the next few weeks, their relationship deepened. They started meeting for coffee before Mia went to work. Ethan would walk her to the subway station, and they would stand on the platform talking until her train arrived. On weekends, they explored the city together, visiting museums and small music venues. Ethan paid for everything, but he did so carefully. He always suggested inexpensive places. When they went to restaurants, he chose casual diners where a meal cost $15 or $20. He had to stop himself from automatically reaching for his platinum credit card. Instead, he paid with cash, keeping careful track of his spending to maintain the illusion. Mia appreciated his thoughtfulness. She knew money was tight for him. She started insisting on paying for things herself, splitting bills down the middle. Ethan found this both touching and painful. Here was a woman who made a modest salary as a marketing consultant, insisting on paying for a struggling street musician, when in reality, he could have bought the entire restaurant without noticing the expense. One Saturday afternoon they were walking through the park when it started to rain. They ran for shelter under a large oak tree, laughing and breathless. Mia's hair was wet, and her jacket was soaked. She looked up at Ethan with raindrops on her eyelashes. In that moment, Ethan felt something shift inside him. This was not just attraction or infatuation. He had fallen deeply and completely in love with this woman. Not because of anything she could give him, but simply because of who she was. He reached out and brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. Mia's breath caught. She looked into his eyes and saw something there that made her heart race. Slowly, carefully, he leaned down and kissed her. It was Mia's first kiss with someone she truly cared about. She had dated before, but those relationships had been superficial. This felt different. This felt like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, they stood there holding each other under the oak tree. The rain continued to fall around them, but neither of them cared. Mia felt tears mixing with the raindrops on her cheeks. She had not realized how lonely she had been until this moment.
I think I am falling in love with you.
I know I have fallen in love with you, completely and utterly.
They stayed under that tree for another hour, talking softly about their feelings and their future. Ethan wanted to tell her everything right then, but the words stuck in his throat. He told himself he would find the right moment soon, a better moment when she would be able to understand and forgive. But as the days passed, that moment never seemed to arrive. They settled into a comfortable rhythm. They were officially a couple now. Mia told Rachel about the relationship, and Rachel grudgingly approved. She still had her doubts about Ethan, but she could see how happy Mia was. One evening, Mia surprised Ethan at the park with a gift. It was a new set of guitar strings. She had saved up to buy them from the music store where she thought he worked. Ethan felt his throat tighten as he held the small package. Such a simple gift, but it meant more to him than any expensive present he had ever received.
You did not have to do this.
I wanted to. You have given me so much. Not things, but feelings. You have reminded me what it means to be alive.
Ethan pulled her close and held her tight. He knew in that moment that he could not keep lying to her. The deception had to end. But he was terrified of losing her. That night, Ethan called David and asked him to meet for dinner. They sat in David's office with takeout food spread across the conference table. Ethan told David he was going to reveal everything to Mia. David asked when and how Ethan planned to tell her. Ethan admitted he did not have a plan. He just knew he could not continue the lie. David suggested telling her in a public place, where she would feel safe. Somewhere neutral where they could talk without interruption. Ethan agreed to think about it. But before Ethan could act, Mia made a discovery that changed everything. She was at work reviewing materials for the hotel campaign when she saw a list of the company's investors. One name jumped out at her immediately: Sinclair Industries. She stared at that name for a long moment. Sinclair was not exactly an uncommon name, but something about it bothered her. She opened her laptop and searched for Sinclair Industries. Ethan Sinclair's photo appeared on her screen. She studied the image carefully. The man in the photo wore an expensive suit and had perfectly styled hair, but the eyes were the same. The shape of the face, the set of the jaw. It was him. Her Ethan and the billionaire who had asked her out weeks ago were the same person. Mia felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. She sat there in her office chair, unable to move or think. Rachel walked in with some documents and immediately noticed something was wrong. Rachel looked at Mia's computer screen, and her eyes widened. She asked Mia what this meant. Mia could barely speak. She managed to explain that the street musician she had been dating was actually Ethan Sinclair, the same man she had rejected at the coffee shop. Rachel's expression shifted from shock to anger. She declared that Ethan had been lying to Mia for weeks. She said this was manipulation, and that Mia should end the relationship immediately. But Mia was not thinking about ending the relationship. She was trying to understand why Ethan had done this. She thought back over all their conversations. Every moment they had shared. Had any of it been real? Or was she just another challenge for a bored billionaire? Another business transaction after all. Mia left work early and went straight to Riverside Park. She needed to confront Ethan immediately. She needed to hear the truth from him. When she arrived, he was already there sitting on their usual bench with his guitar. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. But his smile faded when he saw the expression on her face.
Why did you lie to me?
Ethan's face went pale. He set his guitar aside carefully. He knew exactly what she meant.
How did you find out?
Does it matter? I asked you a question. Why did you lie to me?
Ethan took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been dreading. The moment when everything would fall apart. But he owed her the truth.
Do you remember the day we met at the coffee shop?
Of course I remember. I rejected you. And apparently you decided to trick me into dating you anyway.
No, it was not like that.
But Mia was already walking away. Tears were streaming down her face. Ethan called after her, but she did not stop. She could not be there anymore. She needed space to think, to process what she had learned. Ethan stood in the park watching her disappear into the crowd. He felt something breaking inside his chest. He had known this moment would come. But knowing did not make it hurt any less. He pulled out his phone and called David. When David answered, Ethan could barely speak. He simply said that Mia knew everything. David asked where Ethan was and said he would come immediately. But Ethan declined. He needed to be alone. That night, Ethan sat in his penthouse staring out at the city lights. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. His obsession with success, his inability to form genuine connections, the walls he had built around himself. Mia had been right about him from the beginning. He did treat relationships like business transactions. He had just hidden it better this time. Meanwhile, Mia sat in her apartment, unable to stop crying. Rachel came over with wine and comfort. She told Mia that Ethan was not worth her tears. But Mia could not stop thinking about all their time together. The conversations, the music, the kiss in the rain. Had any of it been real? She thought about the way he looked at her when he played guitar. The way he listened to her talk about her dreams. The gentle way he touched her. Those moments had felt genuine. But how could she trust her own judgment anymore? 3 days passed without any contact between them. Ethan did not try to call or text. He knew Mia needed space. But every hour felt like an eternity. He threw himself into work, but found he could not concentrate. David noticed and suggested Ethan take some time off. But Ethan refused. Work was the only thing keeping him from falling apart completely. On the 4th day, Mia received a package at her apartment. There was no return address, but she knew immediately who it was from. Inside was a simple envelope. She opened it with shaking hands and found a letter written in Ethan's handwriting. The letter began with an apology. Ethan wrote that he knew sorry was not enough. He explained everything from the beginning. How her rejection had forced him to examine himself. How he had seen his own emptiness reflected in her words. How he had approached her in the park on impulse, without any plan. How the deception had spiraled beyond his control. He wrote about falling in love with her. How she had shown him what genuine connection felt like. How every moment with her had been the most real thing in his life. He admitted he should have told her the truth much sooner. That his fear and selfishness had hurt her. At the end of the letter, he wrote that he would not contact her again. She deserved better than someone who had lied to her. He would always treasure their time together. But he understood if she never wanted to see him again. The letter ended with 3 simple words. I love you. Mia read the letter 3 times. Then she sat on her couch and cried again. But this time, the tears were different. They were not just tears of hurt and betrayal. They were tears of confusion and conflicted emotion. Because despite everything, she still loved him too. She called Rachel and read the letter aloud. Rachel listened quietly, then gave her honest opinion. She said Ethan's actions were wrong, but his feelings seemed genuine. She pointed out that Mia had to decide what mattered more, the lie or the truth beneath it. Rachel could not make that decision for her. Mia spent the next week in emotional turmoil. She went to work, but could barely focus. Grace noticed and gave her some easier assignments. Her mind kept replaying moments with Ethan, trying to separate truth from deception. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized something important. The man she had fallen in love with was not the billionaire or the street musician. He was the person underneath both those masks. He was someone who loved music and genuine connection. Someone who listened and cared and made her feel seen. That person was real, regardless of his bank account. But the question remained, could she trust him again? And more importantly, did she want to? 2 weeks after their confrontation in the park, Mia made a decision. She took out her phone and typed a message. Her hands were shaking as she hit send. The message was simple and direct. It said they needed to talk. Ethan received Mia's message while sitting in a board meeting. He stared at his phone screen for so long that David had to nudge him. The other executives were waiting for his input on a merger proposal. But Ethan could not focus on anything except those 4 words. We need to talk. He excused himself from the meeting and stepped into the hallway. His hands were shaking as he typed a response. He suggested they meet at a small cafe near her apartment. Somewhere quiet where they could talk privately. Mia agreed, and they set a time for the next evening. Ethan barely slept that night. He kept rehearsing what he would say, how he would explain himself. By morning he had gone through a dozen different speeches. None of them felt adequate. David came to his office around noon and found Ethan staring out the window. David asked if Ethan had prepared what he was going to say. Ethan admitted he had no idea where to start. David sat down and offered some advice. He told Ethan to simply be honest and vulnerable, to stop trying to control the situation and just let Mia see him as he really was. That evening, Ethan arrived at the cafe 30 minutes early. He sat at a corner table nursing a cup of coffee that grew cold. When Mia finally walked through the door, his heart nearly stopped. She looked tired and guarded. Her eyes met his across the room, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Mia walked to the table and sat down. The silence between them was heavy and uncomfortable. Ethan wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, but he kept his hands folded in front of him.
I have been thinking about what you wrote in your letter.
And do you?
And I need to understand something. When you were with me in the park, when we talked and laughed and shared our dreams, was any of that real?
Ethan looked directly into her eyes. This was the most important answer he would ever give.
Every moment was real. Every word I said to you was true. I was not pretending to care about you. I was not acting.
But you were lying about who you were.
Yes, and that was wrong. But the feelings were never a lie. The connection we had was never a lie.
Mia studied his face for a long time. She was trying to see past the hurt and confusion, trying to find the truth.
Why did you do it? Really? Was it some kind of game? Were you trying to prove something?
Ethan took a deep breath. This was the vulnerable moment David had talked about. The moment where he had to let down all his defenses.
When you rejected me at the coffee shop, you said something that cut deep. You said I treated you like a transaction, like your answer did not matter. And you were absolutely right.
He paused and looked down at his hands.
I have spent my entire adult life treating everything like a business deal, including relationships. I never learned how to connect with people genuinely. My wealth became a wall between me and everyone else.
Mia listened without interrupting.
When I saw you in the park the next day, I made an impulsive decision. I wanted to know if someone could care about me. Not Ethan Sinclair the billionaire. Just Ethan the person. I told myself it would just be one conversation. But then you came back the next day. And the next. And I fell in love with you.
But you kept lying. Every day you had a chance to tell me the truth. And you chose not to.
I know. I was selfish and cowardly. I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you would see me the way you saw me that day in the coffee shop. As someone who could not understand genuine connection.
Tears formed in Mia's eyes. She wiped them away quickly.
You hurt me. You made me doubt everything I felt. Everything we shared.
I know. And I am so sorry. I would give anything to take it back. To have been honest with you from the beginning.
They sat in silence for several minutes. The cafe buzzed with conversation around them, but they were in their own bubble of pain and honesty.
I should hate you. Rachel thinks I should hate you. Every logical part of my brain says I should walk away and never look back.
But
But I cannot stop loving you. I have tried. God knows I have tried. But every time I close my eyes, I see you sitting on that bench playing guitar. I hear your voice when you told me I should share my music with the world. I feel your arms around me in the rain.
Ethan felt hope stirring in his chest for the first time in weeks.
I do not know if I can trust you again. I do not know if we can fix this. But I think I want to try.
I will spend the rest of my life earning back your trust. I will be completely honest with you. No more secrets, no more lies.
Mia reached across the table and took his hand. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything.
I need time. I need you to be patient with me. There will be days when I doubt you. When I wonder if this is real.
I understand. I will wait as long as it takes.
They left the cafe together and walked through the city streets. It felt both familiar and strange. They were the same two people who had walked these streets weeks ago. But everything had changed. They talked for hours about what came next, how they would rebuild trust, how they would navigate the reality of Ethan's wealth and status. Over the following weeks, they took things slowly. They went on dates, but Mia insisted on paying her own way. Ethan agreed without argument. He understood she needed to feel like an equal partner, not someone who was being taken care of. One afternoon, David invited them both to lunch. Mia was nervous about meeting Ethan's business partner, but David turned out to be warm and welcoming. He told Mia that Ethan had been miserable for the past month, that he had never seen his friend so affected by anyone. David also apologized for his role in the deception. He admitted he had encouraged Ethan to tell the truth sooner. Mia appreciated his honesty. She could see why Ethan valued his friendship. But just as things were starting to feel stable again, a new problem emerged. Ethan's parents learned about his relationship with Mia. They requested a meeting at their estate. Ethan warned Mia that his parents were difficult people. They cared deeply about social status and business connections. Mia arrived at the Sinclair estate feeling intimidated. The house was more like a mansion, with perfectly manicured grounds and expensive cars in the driveway. A butler answered the door and led them to a formal sitting room. Ethan's mother, Catherine, was tall and elegant. She wore pearls and a designer dress. She looked Mia up and down with barely concealed disdain. Ethan's father, James, was more subtle in his disapproval, but Mia could feel the judgment in his eyes. Catherine asked Mia about her family background and education. She wanted to know what Mia did for a living. When Mia explained she worked in marketing, Catherine made a small dismissive sound. She commented that it must be nice to have such an uncomplicated career. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. James asked about Mia's long-term plans, whether she intended to continue working after marriage. Mia was startled by the assumption that marriage was already decided.
Ethan and I are taking things slowly. We are rebuilding trust after a difficult situation.
Catherine's eyes narrowed. She asked what Mia meant by difficult situation. Ethan jumped in and explained briefly about his deception. Catherine looked appalled. Catherine stated that Ethan had behaved foolishly. She said he should have simply moved on to someone more appropriate, someone from their social circle who understood their world. James agreed and suggested that Ethan's relationship with Mia was a phase, that he would eventually come to his senses. Mia felt her face burning. She stood up from her chair.
Thank you for the tea, but I think it is time for me to leave.
Mia, wait.
But Mia was already walking toward the door. Ethan followed her out of the house. His parents called after him, but he ignored them. He caught up with Mia in the driveway.
I am so sorry. They had no right to treat you that way.
They are your parents, and they clearly do not approve of me.
I do not care if they approve. I care about you.
But Mia could see the conflict in his eyes. She knew family was important to him, despite their difficult relationship.
Maybe they are right. Maybe this is too complicated. Maybe we come from worlds that are just too different.
Do not let them get in your head. We can make this work.
But doubt had already taken root. Mia went home that evening feeling defeated. Rachel came over and found her crying on the couch. Rachel held her and let her talk through her feelings. Rachel pointed out that Ethan would have to choose between his family and Mia. She asked if Mia was prepared for that kind of pressure. Mia admitted she did not know. The next few days were tense. Ethan tried to reassure Mia, but she pulled away. She told him she needed space to think. Ethan reluctantly agreed, though it killed him to step back. Then things got worse. A tabloid photographer spotted them together at a restaurant. Within hours, their relationship was all over social media. The headlines were brutal. They called Mia a gold digger. They speculated she had trapped Ethan with lies and manipulation. The comments were even worse. Mia's phone would not stop ringing. Reporters called her office. Photographers waited outside her apartment building. She felt like her entire life was being invaded. Grace called her into the office and told her the hotel client had seen the news. He was concerned about the publicity affecting their campaign. He suggested it might be better if someone else handled the account. Mia was devastated. She had worked so hard on that project. That evening, Mia sat in her apartment staring at her phone. Articles about her and Ethan kept popping up, each one more vicious than the last. She felt completely overwhelmed. There was a knock at her door. She opened it to find Ethan standing there. He looked exhausted and worried.
I saw the articles. I am handling it. My lawyers are sending cease and desist letters.
This is not your world. This is your world. And I do not belong in it?
Please do not say that.
Look at what has happened. Your parents hate me. I am losing my job. I am being attacked by strangers online. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe this was always going to fail.
Ethan stepped into the apartment and closed the door behind him.
I will not let you push me away because things got hard. We knew there would be challenges. We can face them together.
But what if I cannot handle this? What if I am not strong enough for your world?
Then we will make a different world. One that works for both of us.
Mia wanted to believe him, but fear was stronger than hope right now.
I think you should go.
Mia.
Please. I need to be alone.
Ethan left reluctantly. As soon as the door closed behind him, Mia collapsed on the floor sobbing. Everything felt like it was falling apart. She had lost control of her life. The next morning, Mia called in sick to work. She could not face going to the office. She lay in bed scrolling through articles about herself. Each one made her feel smaller and more worthless. Rachel came over at lunchtime with food and determination. She sat on the edge of Mia's bed and delivered some tough love. She told Mia that she had two choices. She could let these people destroy her, or she could stand up and fight back. Rachel pointed out that Mia was letting other people define her worth. She reminded Mia of her strength and resilience. She said that if Mia truly loved Ethan, then she needed to decide if he was worth fighting for. Rachel's words struck deep. Mia realized she had been giving too much power to Ethan's parents and the media. She had been so focused on what other people thought that she had forgotten what she wanted. That afternoon, Mia got dressed and went to Ethan's office. His secretary tried to stop her, but Mia walked past her. She burst into Ethan's office where he was in a meeting with David. Ethan stood up immediately when he saw her. Concern flooded his face.
We need to talk. Right now.
Ethan asked David to excuse them. David left with a knowing smile. Once they were alone, Mia faced Ethan.
I have been thinking about what you said. About making our own world. One that works for both of us.
Yes.
What does that look like exactly?
Ethan thought for a moment. He had been asking himself the same question.
It means I stop hiding behind my wealth. It means I use my resources to support things that matter, not just to make more money. It means prioritizing our relationship over my parents' expectations.
And what about me? What do I have to do?
You have to trust me. Really trust me. Not just say you trust me, but believe it in your heart.
Mia took a deep breath.
I wanted to try, but I need you to be patient with me. When I doubt, when I get scared, I need you to remind me why we are doing this.
I can do that.
They held each other in the middle of his office. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a start. Over the next month, things slowly improved. Ethan made good on his promises. He told his parents he would not tolerate their disrespect toward Mia. When they threatened to cut him off financially, he simply shrugged. He told them his relationship was not negotiable. Catherine was shocked. No one had ever stood up to her this way. James tried a different approach. He suggested a compromise. If Ethan and Mia lasted 6 months, he would consider accepting their relationship. Ethan refused. He told them they could accept Mia now, or lose their son. The media attention gradually died down. Ethan's lawyers had been effective in shutting down the worst offenders. Mia learned to ignore the occasional article or comment. She focused on her work and her relationship. Grace gave Mia back the hotel account. The client had been impressed by how Mia handled the publicity. He said it showed she had backbone. Mia threw herself into the project with renewed energy. One evening, Ethan surprised Mia by taking her to Riverside Park. He led her to their usual bench where his guitar was waiting. He had not played for her since before she learned the truth.
I wrote something new. I want you to hear it.
He picked up the guitar and began to play. The melody was beautiful and haunting. It spoke of loss and hope, of mistakes and redemption. When he finished, Mia had tears streaming down her face.
That was incredible. What is it called?
It is called Mia's Song. I wrote it about us, about everything we have been through.
Mia leaned her head on his shoulder just like she used to. It felt right. It felt like home. But their journey was not quite over. 3 months later, Ethan received devastating news. Sinclair Industries was being investigated for financial irregularities. One of his executives had been embezzling funds for years. The scandal threatened to destroy everything Ethan had built. Ethan worked 18-hour days trying to fix the situation. He hired forensic accountants and lawyers. He cooperated fully with investigators. But the stress was taking its toll. Mia watched him slowly burning out. He stopped sleeping properly. He barely ate. She tried to help, but he pushed her away. He said he needed to handle this alone. One night, Mia let herself into his apartment with the spare key he had given her. She found him sitting at his desk surrounded by papers. He looked terrible.
When was the last time you slept?
I do not remember.
You need to rest.
I cannot. If I do not fix this, I will lose everything. The company, my reputation, everything my father built.
Mia walked over and turned his chair to face her. She knelt down so they were eye level.
You will not lose me. No matter what happens with the company, you will not lose me.
Ethan's facade finally cracked. He broke down and cried. Mia held him and let him release all the fear and stress he had been carrying. When he finally calmed down, she led him to bed. She lay beside him until he fell asleep. The investigation lasted another 2 months. In the end, Ethan was cleared of any wrongdoing. But the executive who had embezzled was sent to prison. Sinclair Industries took a financial hit, but it survived. During those difficult months, Mia was Ethan's anchor. She showed up every day with food and encouragement. She sat with him through late-night work sessions. She reminded him that his worth was not defined by his business success. David commented one evening that he had never seen Ethan so dependent on someone. Ethan admitted he had never let himself be vulnerable before. Mia had taught him it was okay to need help. When the investigation finally concluded, Ethan took a week off. It was the first vacation he had taken in 5 years. He and Mia went to a small cabin in the mountains. No phones, no internet. Just the two of them and nature. They spent their days hiking and their evenings sitting by the fire. Ethan played guitar while Mia sang along. They talked about the future, about what they wanted their life to look like.
I have been thinking about making some changes. Maybe stepping back from day-to-day operations at the company.
Really?
I want more time for the things that matter. For music for us. David can handle most of the business. He is more than capable.
Mia was surprised but pleased. She knew how much Ethan's work had consumed him.
What would you do with all that free time?
I would like to start a foundation, supporting young musicians who cannot afford formal training. And I want to spend time with you. Actual quality time. not just stolen moments between meetings.
They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire crackle.
I have been thinking too. About performing
Performing what?
piano. You were right when you said I should share my music. I have been too afraid. But watching you fight through everything with the company, it made me realize life is too short to let fear win.
Ethan smiled and kissed her forehead.
I would love to hear you perform.
6 months later, Mia gave her first public piano recital. It was at a small venue with maybe 50 seats. Rachel was there. David was there. Even Ethan's parents showed up, though they sat stiffly in the back row. Mia was terrified as she walked onto the stage. But then she saw Ethan sitting in the front row. He gave her an encouraging smile. She sat down at the piano and began to play. The music flowed through her fingers. All her fear melted away. She was completely present in the moment. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause. Ethan stood up and whistled loudly. After the recital, Ethan found her backstage. He pulled her into a tight hug.
You were magnificent.
I was so nervous.
You did not look nervous. You looked like you were exactly where you belong.
Later that evening, they went back to Riverside Park. It had become their special place. The place where everything had begun. They sat on their usual bench watching the sunset. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Mia's breath caught.
Before you panic, this is not what you think it is.
He opened the box to reveal a simple silver ring. Not an engagement ring, but something more personal.
This is a promise ring. A promise that I will always be honest with you. That I will never take you for granted. That I will spend every day earning your trust and love.
Tears filled Mia's eyes.
I have a promise too. I promise to believe in us. Even when things get hard. Even when I get scared. I promise to fight for what we have.
Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They sat there as darkness fell, holding hands and watching the city lights come on one by one. They had been through so much together. Deception and betrayal. Scandal and investigation. Family pressure and public scrutiny. But they had survived it all. They had learned to trust each other, to support each other, to love each other completely and honestly. Mia thought back to that day in the coffee shop, when she had rejected the arrogant billionaire. She had been right to reject him, but she was glad she had fallen in love with the real man underneath. Ethan thought about his transformation. How Mia had forced him to examine himself, to become someone worthy of genuine love. He had lost his comfortable lies, but he had gained something infinitely more valuable.
What are you thinking about?
About how lucky I am that you gave me a second chance.
We gave each other a second chance.
1 year later, Ethan officially launched the Sinclair Foundation for Young Musicians. The first scholarship went to a talented guitarist from a low-income neighborhood. Ethan personally mentored the young man, teaching him everything he had learned about music and life. Mia continued giving piano recitals. She also started teaching music to children on weekends. She found joy in passing on her passion to the next generation. Grace promoted her to senior marketing director, acknowledging her talent and dedication. Ethan's parents gradually warmed to Mia. Catherine still made the occasional cutting comment, but James actually apologized for his initial behavior. He admitted he had been wrong to judge Mia. He could see that she made his son genuinely happy. Rachel became friends with David. They discovered they both loved terrible action movies. They started having weekly movie nights. Eventually, they became more than friends. Mia loved watching her best friend fall in love. 2 years after their reunion, Ethan and Mia moved into a new apartment together. It was not a penthouse. Ethan had sold his ostentatious place. Instead, they chose a modest 2-bedroom with a view of Riverside Park. Mia filled it with plants and books. Ethan set up a music room where they could both practice. They hosted dinner parties for their friends. Simple gatherings with good food and conversation. David always brought wine. Rachel brought gossip and laughter. These became the moments they treasured most. One evening, as they were cleaning up after one of these parties, Mia found Ethan washing dishes. She stopped and stared at him. The billionaire investor, wearing an apron and scrubbing plates.
What? What?
What are you smiling at?
You. Doing dishes. 2 years ago, I could not have imagined this.
2 years ago, I could not have imagined being happy. Really, truly happy.
Mia picked up a towel and started drying. They worked side by side in comfortable silence. The radio played softly in the background. Outside their window, the park was dark and peaceful. This was the world they had built together. Not Ethan's world of boardrooms and business deals. Not Mia's world of modest dreams and careful budgets. But something new. Something that belonged to both of them equally. They learned to navigate the remaining challenges together. When Ethan's wealth created uncomfortable situations, Mia spoke up. When Mia's insecurities resurfaced, Ethan patiently reassured her. They developed a rhythm. A balance that worked for them. 3 years into their relationship, Ethan proposed. Not with a flashy public gesture, but with a quiet moment in Riverside Park. He got down on one knee at their bench. The place where they had fallen in love.
I know we have a promise ring, but I want to make a bigger promise. I want to promise you forever.
Mia said yes before he even finished speaking. The ring was beautiful, but not ostentatious. Ethan had learned that Mia valued meaning over price tags. They planned a small wedding. Just close friends and family. Rachel was maid of honor. David was best man. Even Ethan's parents seemed genuinely happy. The ceremony took place in a garden, on a perfect spring day. Mia wore a simple white dress. Ethan could not stop smiling. When they exchanged vows, he promised to always value honesty over comfort. Mia promised to always choose love over fear. At the reception, Ethan surprised everyone by performing. He sang the song he had written for Mia. His voice was not perfect, but it was full of emotion. There was not a dry eye in the room. Later, Mia sat at a piano and played. Ethan stood beside her, turning pages. They performed a duet they had been practicing for months. The music filled the garden, wrapping around their guests like a warm embrace. As the sun set, David made a toast. He talked about watching Ethan transform from a cold businessman into a man capable of real love. He thanked Mia for showing his best friend what truly mattered in life. He said their love story gave him hope. Rachel spoke next. She admitted she'd been skeptical at first, but seeing how Ethan and Mia fought for each other had changed her mind. She said true love was not about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth fighting for. Late that night, after all the guests had left, Ethan and Mia sat on a bench overlooking the garden. Mia rested her head on his shoulder. Her feet hurt from dancing, but she felt perfectly content.
Did you ever imagine this? When you sat down in that park with your guitar?
I imagined meeting you. I did not imagine everything that would come after.
Was it worth it? All the pain and struggle?
Every single second.
They stayed there until the stars came out, talking about their honeymoon plans, about the foundation's growth, about the life they would build together. Years later, they would tell their story to anyone who asked. They never hid the messy beginning, the lies and betrayal. They believed their story was important, precisely because it was not perfect. They taught people that love required work. That trust had to be earned and maintained. That honesty was more valuable than any amount of money. They showed that people could change, that mistakes did not have to define you. Ethan never returned to the park with his guitar after they got married. He did not need to anymore. He had found what he was looking for. He had found genuine connection. He had found someone who loved him for who he truly was. Mia never regretted giving him that second chance. Yes, he had hurt her, but he had also helped her grow. He had encouraged her to pursue her dreams, to take risks, to believe in herself. They built a life filled with music and laughter, with honesty and trust, with the kind of love that comes from truly seeing someone, all their flaws and fears and dreams, and choosing them anyway. On their 10th anniversary, they returned to Riverside Park. They sat on that same bench where they had met. The park had changed over the years. New trees had been planted. The path had been repaved, but the bench remained. Ethan brought his guitar. He played Mia's song. The melody had evolved over the years, just like their relationship. It was richer now, more complex, more beautiful. As he played, a young couple walked by holding hands. They stopped to listen. When Ethan finished, they applauded. The young man asked if Ethan performed professionally. Ethan smiled and shook his head.
No, I just play for the love of it.
The young couple walked on, and Ethan turned to Mia. She had tears in her eyes.
I love you. I will always love you.
And I will always love you. Not the billionaire. Not the street musician. Just you.
They sat there as afternoon turned to evening, watching the river flow past, listening to the city sounds around them, exactly where they belonged. Their story was not about wealth or status. It was not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about two imperfect people who learned to love each other honestly, who chose trust over fear, who built something real and lasting. And in the end, that was all that mattered. How did you enjoy today's story? Please leave a rating from 1 to 10. Let us know where you are watching from. And if you have a similar experience or personal story, feel free to share it in the comments. Your engagement greatly helps the growth and longevity of this channel. If you subscribe, you will receive new stories every day. We hope today's episode brought richness to your day. Thank you for watching.